Welcome to Seminar Sunday, District 21's weekly episodic webinar series. This evening, we will be talking about how can we help you reach distinguished as a club. It's great to be with you today. My name is Michael Bown. I'm the Program Quality Director with District 21 Toastmasters. And through tonight's journey, we will discuss, of course, first of all, what is a distinguished club, and then also how we can specifically help you and your club to reach distinguished in the next month and a week that we have remaining in the program year. This is part of a weekly series of webinars. We have the following subjects coming up through the month of June, everything from pathways to goal setting, and of course, we'll finish off on June 30th discussing the final year in the traditional program, how you can achieve Distinguished Toastmaster designation by June 30th, 2020. This is meant to be interactive, so I encourage you to participate. You're welcome to enter items into the chat that you may want to discuss, as well as unmute yourself at any time to speak up and share your thoughts on any of the topics that we cover this evening. I try to keep these as casual as we can, so don't feel like you're interrupting. If you have a thought or comment at any point during the time together, just throw it out there. We can always kind of divert and come back as long as it's within reason, of course. I mean, if you want to ask me what I had for lunch, then perhaps we can save that for the end. But if it's on the topic that we're discussing, definitely encourage participation as we go along. So what are we going to talk about tonight? Well, there's really only two things that we want to talk about this evening. Number one of them is just an overview of the Distinguished Club program, as I mentioned earlier, just to make sure we're all on a level playing field with our understanding of what it is to be a distinguished club. Why would you want to be a distinguished club? And then the second point is actions that you and your club can take, of course, to achieve distinguished recognition and creating the culture of being distinguished each year, which is really key. It's not just about getting there this year. It's about consistently being there and showing that your club is, you're working the education program, you're replacing any members that are leaving, and that club has a foundation built around that culture. Without further ado, let's talk about it. So the DCP, or Distinguished Club Program, you'll hear those interchangeably through this conversation, but also just generally when you go out and attend different events in the community, or sometimes within your club executive, you'll have people that will drop the acronym DCP. Of course, newer members may get confused when they hear that, so just remember, of course, to spell that out, Distinguished Club Program, and make it clear to people that they are one and the same, the DCP and the Distinguished Club Program. They are based, the goals in this are based off several categories. So I'm going to work through the kind of the groupings of the categories, and then we'll just go overall how that looks. So a distinguished club, of course, is a club that is, its report card reports out that it is strong, and there's varying levels of that strength that we'll get into in a moment. But these are the measurements for that distinguished club recognition, and therefore a measurement of how the health of your club is going. The first one that I like to talk a little bit about is just the administration aspect, because that is, first of all, the one thing that can impact you this program year for next program year, and also because it's probably going to be the easiest thing that you can get, the administration tasks. There's very little question to whether or not you'll get them if you just follow the basics. So an example is one of the things that you need to do is submit your dues on time for one of the renewal periods. So we renew for October 1st and April 1st. If you get your dues in on time for one of those, you'll get half of a goal in the Distinguished Club Program. The other half is the one I was talking about just a moment ago, where you submit your club officer list before June 30th. So that combined with on-time dues renewal once during the year gives you a goal. And there's only 10 goals to achieve. So one goal for just kind of keeping up with that basic administrative task is all there is to it. The other one is attending training. So at least a minimum of 4 club officers need to attend each the June to August and December to February training rounds. And that's that can be any of the 4 officers. It doesn't necessarily matter which officers attend. You don't have to have all 7 trained, although there's more benefit through that because training is something that you'll find really repays you. So that's kind of the general administration and training, because you're going to get, first of all, by submitting dues on time, you're keeping your club in good standing. Obviously, if you continuously are submitting dues late, your club may be in trouble. But most clubs, of course, are submitting their dues on time. The training aspect can also be challenging to motivate members to attend, but there's great value in that, in attending club officer training, because people are able to better understand how they can fulfill their roles and share best practices as well, which for me personally is the biggest value when I attend club officer training, is being able to share best practices. Education is the third kind of bucket of items in the Distinguished Club program. So what that shows is that members have the opportunity to reach their goals through completing educational awards. I will admit to being a little bit of a Distinguished Club, I guess you could call it snob, so to speak. And when I look at a club's standing in terms of the Distinguished Club program, if I see, okay, well, this club has 20 odd, 30 members and no educational goals in the last year, well, certainly you start to wonder, well, what are these members doing? Especially you look at level 1 now is only 4 speeches. So if nobody's been able to complete that this whole year, it just becomes a little bit like, what is the barrier for gaining educational awards? And it could be, that there's not enough speaking opportunities. It could be that the members aren't motivated to get up and speak. There's a whole range of scenarios that could be causing this. But the point is that when you look at educational awards for a club, you're expecting to see a relatively good, amount of educational awards representative of the members. So a club that has 8 members that's got a couple of educational awards, that makes sense. But if you've got 20, 30 more members, it's very likely that you should be able to get quite a number of educational awards through the year as people continue on with whatever program they happen to be working through. They may finish half of a path this year, for example, but then the first half of next year, they're likely to finish the rest of that level that they were working on, and so forth. So that's education. And then membership is the kind of final category. And this is, I suspect, the biggest challenge for most of our clubs, because what you need, and this is also where people sometimes get a little bit tripped up, is you need to gain 5 new members net or 20 members. So if your club had 15 or greater members as of June 30th, 2018, you must have 20 members. Even if your club was well above, let's say you had 30 members at the end of last program year, you're still okay going down to 20 members and finishing, qualifying for the program. But you absolutely cannot finish lower than 20. And then, of course, if you have fewer than 15 to start the year, you would just need the net gain of 5. In either case, though, what you really need, going back to this membership concept, is 4 plus 4 members. And those are 2 goals right there. Every 4 members you get your 4, you get your second batch of 4, 8 new members total. That will give you 2 goals. And hopefully through that, it automatically will qualify you for the Distinguished Club program based on the membership that I was just talking about. An interesting fact about the 8 members is the average club will have an attrition around 40% each program year. So if you're a club with 20 members and you lose 40%, that means you need to gain back 8 more members in order to get back to 20. So there is some mathematical sense based around this membership, which is why I talked about the membership qualifying requirement of the 20, as well as the 4 plus 4 being relevant. And it's on the screen. I don't necessarily like to read out the slides, but this is really a powerful statement. When new members join, everyone's experience is enhanced because your club has enough members to provide leadership and fill meeting and committee assignments. In fact, if you consider a club that has 20 members, really, on average, you should be on the executive every 2.5, 3 years. And of course, because of the attrition, in reality, you may even go a longer period of time without being a club officer. Now, I know what you're probably thinking, like, yeah, right, that's not the way it works. This is, of course, all theory I'm talking about. In practice, I recognize that it's very rare that even a club that has 20, 30 members doesn't have a specific group of people that tend to end up on the executive. But it is, mathematically speaking, if you look at that 20-member average, yeah, 7 members of the executive each program year, plus the immediate past president, there should be a nice kind of rollover each year in different officers. So just something to think about is the membership is not only, you know, the fact that you're getting new people in that are breathing in new life and new icebreakers to watch, but you're also getting new leaders in that can help take on some of the club responsibilities, which in turn prevents burnout of those members that have been around a bit longer. So there is a real important emphasis on that membership. And I think sometimes it's just perceived as, every club's just supposed to grow. There's never a big focus. Once a club reaches 20, it's never a big focus to get much larger unless it's the club's internal focus to get much larger than 20. So those are the kind of basic groupings. So this is what the Distinguished Club program looks like right now. For those of you that have been a member for quite some time, you'll know that in the past we had a traditional program that is still reflected today in the Distinguished Club program. But of course, as time goes on, it's kind of moving itself out as Pathways moves in. So we'll see that in this model here that I've got on the screen. But I want to start at the top again with that qualifying requirement that I mentioned earlier. So to be considered for recognition, the club needs to have the 20 members or a net growth of at least 5 new members as of June 30th. So why I want to highlight that again is that tends to be an area that sometimes clubs get tripped up on. They don't realize. I had a club a number of years ago that reached out to me because they didn't receive their Select Distinguished ribbon. And it turns out they needed 20 members, but they finished with 19 members. So the club had misunderstood and they thought just gaining 5 members during the year was all they needed, which of course wasn't the case. It's a matter of a net gain. So whatever you finished last year with, you still need to gain another 5 on top of, or 20 members. So it was a very unfortunate case because the club, of course, thought they were distinguished and was very disheartened to hear that they were not distinguished because of being 1 member short. So important to reflect sometimes on, where is our club? How are they doing? And do we have the membership requirement? I had a phone call earlier with someone as well who happened to be 5 members short of reaching that qualifying requirement. And they were happy to let me know that they had 5 new people joining up. So I should see that in the next week or 2, and they will be a President's Distinguished Club, as a matter of fact. So it's great to hear those stories, but really important as well to make sure that everybody you talk to is aware of that, because that is probably the biggest thing. As soon as you pass that qualifying requirement, that's when you're starting to be able to really dive in and assess what your club can possibly earn in terms of recognition, which is on the bottom. So achieving 5 out of 10 goals gives you the Distinguished Club. 7 out of the 10 goals is a Select Distinguished. And finally, 9 out of 10 is President's Distinguished. 10 out of 10, of course, doesn't give you anything beyond President's Distinguished, just bragging rights. In fact, one club that is regularly 10 out of 10 goals states that they feel like they're treated more as a premier club by getting to 10 out of 10. So it's just their own independent goal to go beyond that 9 out of 10. And I think that's a really cool concept and culture that they're building within. So that is kind of the nuts and bolts of what the recognition is, what the qualifying requirement is. To get the recognition, it takes a number of steps. As you'll see in the middle of the page there, we've got the goals that you can achieve towards getting there. But once you get recognition, once you receive either Distinguished, Select Distinguished, or President's Distinguished Club, you gain a ribbon to add to your banner, which of course you may say, well, what's a ribbon? A ribbon means a lot though, because it's something that you get to keep as a reflection of your club's great successes in that program year. And I think what's more important is you can really sit back and think, yeah, we're running a really good club here. And it's not to say you're not running a good club necessarily if you're not getting there, but the health of your club usually reflects the level of distinguished that you reach. And to be completely, going back to my, I guess you could call me distinguished snob, if I was looking for a club, let's say someone asked me, hey, you know what, I want to join a club in Australia. I'm going to be down in Perth and going to be living there a couple of years. I want to join a club. Which club should I go to? I would look for a President's Distinguished Club to send them to, because I want them to get the best experience. And that's really the only measurement I have. So how many people are doing that right now on the other side of the world and sending people to your club? Just some food for thought in that direction. So you'll see in the middle of the page, the goals. There is a total of 12 goals that you can achieve in education for a maximum of 6. So you can get 6 out of the 10 goals reached just through the education awards. Why is there 12? Half of them are traditional and the other half are pathways based. So what's going to happen is for this year and next year, you'll be able to gain any of the 2. And after next year, all of the traditionals will fall off, leaving just 6 again, just like there was prior to Pathways rollout with just traditional awards. 2 of the goals are then for membership. As I mentioned earlier, 4 members and then an additional 4 members. There's 1 goal for the training and 1 goal for administration, totaling 10. So with that, I'd like to know, does anybody have any questions on the Distinguished Club program, how things work, or anything that we've kind of covered thus far?
Hey, Michael, it's Sean. No questions, but I do have a comment.
Yes, sir.
When I moved from Richmond to North Delta, one of the things I did look at was which club had the number of goals, which one was the most successful, and that was what helped determine which club I was going to join first.
Right.
And I've since joined another club, but to your point, if somebody's looking to join a club, they're going to look, if they have any kind of awareness of what's going on within Toastmasters and they're moving into the community, they're going to look for a club that's going to be distinguished or better before they look at another club.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's one of the measurements I would use for sure. Any other thoughts? I would love to share a story really quick as well then about Distinguished Club, because I mentioned earlier that this is something that I've looked at consistently for the last, well, quite a while actually, probably a couple of years at least. Distinguished Club performance over the years. And there is one club that I can think of that does have quite a high membership. They're consistently well over 20 members, yet they usually squeal in around May or June to Distinguished or Select Distinguished. Never been to the club, yet I knew that the club was maybe more of a social club, I guess you'd call it, than an educational Toastmasters group, because I was just looking at that like, okay, well, they've got a number of members that haven't received educational awards in quite a number of years. In fact, there's one I can think of that hasn't got one in 10 years. They've been a member for the last 10 years, or well over 10 years, I should say, because 10 years ago they got their CC. So since 2009, when they received their CC, they have not received another award, which means, in theory, they must be doing less than a speech a year in order to progress that slowly. Like, they haven't repeated the CC, they haven't got an ACB, no new pathways awards, anything like that. Sure enough, I heard from a guest of that club recently, and they said that one of the members, when they told them how they actually wanted to get in and start working the program really hard, and they wanted to get good at and comfortable at public speaking, the member was trying to discourage them and say, well, why wouldn't you come and just enjoy the meeting? So obviously it's quite interesting to hear that and kind of have that validated through a completely different party. I had never said anything about that club before to this person. They came to me with this feedback, and they had some other concerns as well, but that was just a real emphasis for me on, okay, well, that's what this means is, it's a club that they want to have, their meeting and then have coffee and whatever, but they don't necessarily care about educational awards. And so I don't know what the meeting looks like, but definitely a different culture than perhaps what the goal of Toastmasters International is in supporting people in their communication and leadership growth. Any other questions? It's a quiet bunch today, I must say. Everybody's shy or something. Okay, well, I'm going to share one more story. I'll just keep sharing stories. I had a great telephone call with a president of a club just a couple of days ago now. And one of the things that we were talking about was their club. And the club is kind of, I guess you could say, it's been down a little bit recently. They consistently had typically 30 or more members. Recently, they were down to 12. This has been over the last 2 or 3 years where the club has kind of went down in terms of their membership count and everything else as well. And just through the conversation with the president, he said to me that, because I said, well, boy, I think at the time it was 6 members away from qualifying for Distinguished. I said, you're 6 members away. What are you going to do? And then he said, well, we've been President's Distinguished for quite a few years in a row. I can't possibly not let this club be distinguished on my watch. So that was the power of having that kind of culture in the club. It was no longer, just, oh, I'm going to throw in the towel, we're too far away. It was, no, I have to make this happen. So now that person is running a membership campaign. They're doing open houses. They're turning the city upside down to find members that want to become part of the club, and real members, which is also critical, of course. You never want to fill your club up with members that aren't truly attending. But that was just so inspirational to me to hear that that was what the president wanted, because the fact that the club had that pre-existing culture and no other reason at all. And I know of at least one other club that has that same thing, because they've been President's Distinguished every year since the program began. And there would be some sort of crisis in the club if a president ever suggested for a second that they could not be President's Distinguished. And once again, you'll see that in a club. You'll feel that in a club, in their energy, in their approach to everything. So again, not saying that a club that's not distinguished is a bad club, because there's good clubs that aren't. But you know, every club focused towards getting there is absolutely going to be a huge benefit to every club. So at this time, what I want to do is I want to flip the table around a little. I want to hear about your thoughts. What do you need from myself or any other member to help you and your club become distinguished? It means a lot to me to be able to reach out and support you any way I can. And I see there's a few members on the line here that are from a couple of different clubs. I'd love to bring up your stats, and perhaps we could talk it through a little bit. And to start it off, I'd like to ask if maybe our district director, Sean Gold, maybe you've got a club that you would like to talk about.
Well, that is putting me on the spot. But you know what? As Toastmasters, we should be able to handle table topics effectively and deal with it. So I belong to 2 clubs currently. One club has 20 plus members and is doing pretty well. They've got some good strength. They have had some recent DPMs, one move away and one who's retiring from the club, who's been a long time member, but just you know, it's been there a long time, and another one who's left the club as well. So we have some people who are leaving the club. I'm not certain if it's because they haven't engaged in pathways or not, or they're not interested in some of that, but maybe they just felt that they've done enough over the years and they need a little bit of a break. So right. That's a bit of a concern.
Okay.
However, we do have the numbers in that club, and I don't think there's going to be a significant problem with that.
Okay.
On the other side, I have another club that is that's I think got 18 members, and we've been getting a lot of new members, a lot of growth, but not a lot of retention. So we've had some retention challenges there, and that one is a bigger concern because of the lack of retention and keeping people engaged. And I think that's partly because the meetings usually have a small turnout, and everyone has to step up and take on roles, multiple roles, and it's usually handled at the last minute instead of being handled well in advance. Part of that is that people aren't signing up for roles, and I've seen that in both clubs. We're having difficulty getting people to sign up for roles in advance, and I'm trying to support that as well. So the challenges are making sure that the member experience is solid enough that they will not only join the club, because they'll see it as being a vibrant, exciting club and not too onerous a task of joining, but also when they do join it, they can see that they have an opportunity to grow and to learn without having to be under a lot of pressure to just show up to make sure that they've got enough people to fill the roles. So there's some challenges.
Mm-hmm. So would you like to take a look at one of those clubs, perhaps?
Sure. Why don't we look at Global?
Global.
I'm sorry, Global. What am I talking about? The Word. I'm thinking of, it doesn't matter. The Word.
Yeah. The Word, well,
yeah. Actually, I was thinking of Global for another reason, because I was watching something else under. Okay. But yeah, no, we'll take a look at The Word, which is,
okay.
I can't remember the number, 5881.
Oh, that's perfectly fine. That's no problem. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at that, and I just want to navigate everybody through this, because I don't know that everybody's aware of this. In fact, I'm sure lots of people don't know about it. Hopefully everybody on the line is already aware. But what you can do is pull up the Toastmasters.org website. You do not need to log in or anything to see this information. You just simply go to Leadership Central and then Distinguished Performance Reports. So this is right from the homepage at the Toastmasters.org website. As soon as you bring that up, it's going to look a little foreign because this is how the world looks right now, basically. But what you can do is you can either put your club name or number in here, or you can drop down and pick your district and be able to filter that way. So let's try actually see if it works here by putting in the word. So there we are. We've got the club right here. It's going to show us what region, district, division, and area it is, which will confirm our thoughts. Okay, so we recognize this is the only club with that name that's in District 21, Division F, Area 53. By clicking on it, we're able to see exactly how the club is doing. So you'll notice by looking at the word here that the club started with 17 members. That's the base. It currently has 18 members, which represents a net increase of 1 member. But because they had more than 14 at the start of the program year, they need to get to 20. So they don't need the net gain of 5, they just need to get to 20 in order to pass the qualifying requirement. That's what this section's all about here in the middle. On the right-hand side, it's reminding us the goals and the correlation to being a distinguished or select President's Distinguished Club. They currently have 8, but they are not select distinguished because they are 2 members short. So in order to become select distinguished, they need to get 2 more members. The other thing that you may want to look at in a case like this, if your club had, let's say, 8 goals, and why I scrolled down there really quick, is you may not have had your second group of 4. And if that's the case, then of course, when you get 4 new members, you'll meet the qualifying requirement and have the 9th goal. But in this case, the club already has that. So they've received their training credit, administration, membership. So now it's all up to the educational awards. You'll see that there's check boxes here to indicate the awards they've received already, which is 4 educational awards, which is what's leading them to the 8 goals. And you can also note that there's a goal for how many educational awards are required and how many have been achieved. So by looking at this, level 1, we see that you need 4 level 1s in a year to get this goal. The club currently has 3. Only 1 more level 1 is required in order to get that 4th person with a level 1 and the 9th goal in the Distinguished Club program. So this club, in order to be President's Distinguished, would need just 1 more level 1 and 2 more members. So hopefully that resonates with those of you that are listening in. They are very close. I would be very surprised if the club did not achieve that, especially with Sean in the club. I'm sure you'll make sure they're aware that 2 members is all that's needed. But certainly, not every club is in this situation, but it's a good position to be in. 2 members is very realistic and attainable. What you'll find, I just want to go back really quick here as well to refresh everyone how we got here. Leadership Central, Distinguished Performance Reports, and this is where you get report card basically for your club. So drop down to your district or enter your club name or number. You'll also want to check these dates because these dates are representative of the program year, and you want to make sure it's reflecting the current date, 1 day back. It always runs at night for the previous day. What will happen at the end of every month, though, it will freeze for anywhere between 1 to about 3 weeks, depending on the month. So for May transitioning to June, I believe it's only a week or 2. You may not see new members. You may not see the club showing distinguished, even though you've reached that goal. So just a heads up that you'll notice that here, that it will still show May, and then one day you'll log in and it'll show June. And that's when you know the stats are back to live, essentially, 1 day lag. Besides using the drop down to pick your district, you can also pick right here, and it takes you to the same screen. This is not the best screen to look at, though, because this is more high level from a district vision and area performance. What you'll want to see is the club performance. That's how each club in District 21 is performing. From there, you can collapse and pick the division that's of interest to you. So in this case, we were looking at Division F. Let's go back in there and back down to the word here in Area 53. By clicking, of course, high level, you can see it right here, and you can compare with your neighboring clubs. Let's click back on it. Let's say you want to take this to an executive meeting. That is also something that's super simple to do. Instead of just taking a screenshot of this or sending people a link to this, you can actually export as a PDF, and that will give you your club's report card. Let me see, it probably isn't sharing that now, so I'm just gonna try and share the PDF, how it comes up now. Here we go. So you'll see the PDF actually is just that. It's a report card, basically. It puts the date that it's effective from and the same information in a simple single sheet document. Super easy to email to people, print off copies for an executive meeting, use it and consume it any way that you want. What you'll notice as well is once this club gets the 20th member, up here it will right away read Select Distinguished Club. So you'll start to see that on different clubs once you start to look beyond your club, in this case, Sean. Let's take a look at another club though and see perhaps how it's doing. Do we have any other volunteers? 5060. 5060. So there we've got a club number. Right away, of course, we get the result. In this case, it's Norvik Toastmasters. So let's start over at the goals here. We've got 7 goals reached. Select Distinguished Club. But wait, we don't quite have this over here. So once again, the club's base, they started with 20 members. They've slipped down to 15 over the last 12 months, which is fine. I mean, 15 is still very reasonable, but of course, keeping the hat on that we want to get the Select Distinguished recognition that we think our club deserves, we need to get 5 more members. Going down really quick as well, we'll see, oh, in this case, we don't have that second batch of 4 members, and that's part of the challenge here. We've got some educational awards, which shows that the club is working the educational program, but we've had some challenges with recruitment this year. So in reality, because we started with 20 and we've lost quite a number of people, it looks like actually 9 instead of 8. So the stat is slightly higher here than with a general club of 20, because of course, going back to that idea of probably would go down by 8 members, hence the need to grow 8. But in this case, they're close, but not quite the exact stat. They just need 5 more, and they'll get their 8th goal out of that automatically. So then if they're working towards any other educational awards, perhaps some Pathways Awards, for example, as the awards this year thus far have all been in the traditional program, then the club would qualify for Presence Distinguished. Or they may just settle with the 8 out of 10 goals and be Select Distinguished. So hopefully that makes sense when we look at that. And of course, once again, you can consume that in a more friendly way by printing it out as a PDF or emailing it as a PDF. Totally whatever is comfortable to you and the club, or bringing it up live in a club meeting is always helpful as well, because this is really like a report card, how your club's doing. Jan has put in the comments here, if the club is constantly attracting guests, it won't be as much of a stretch to get 5 new members. That is definitely going to be a contributing factor, is recognizing that. I think the clubs that end up in a position where they find that themselves in a little bit of trouble are those clubs that say, you know what, we've got 20 members, we're comfortable, we're good, and they start to more or less coast. What happens then, of course, is because they stop that active, like, seeking out new members, they just kind of end up, all of a sudden dues renewal comes and a bunch of people leave, and oh my goodness, then all of a sudden it's a panic. Instead, you want to keep kind of the gas down on replacing members that are leaving. And, sure, you may have 20 members sometimes, you might have 25, you might slip down, etc. It's always going to be an evolution as time goes on, but by keeping that focus on at all times, it avoids kind of a crunch at the end of the program year, or just slipping down year upon year until the club eventually dissolves. So inviting guests is critical, as is working with guests. Everybody walks through a Toastmasters door because they see themselves needing something. If they didn't have a need, they probably would not be walking into your club. They would be doing something else with their time. So it could be they want to be professional speakers. It could just be they want to get comfortable in front of an audience. It could be they want to be better leaders, or get a promotion at work, or succeed in a job interview, or a wedding speech. There's so many reasons that somebody will walk through those doors, but everybody walks through for something. And the vast majority of them are in need of something that your club is offering. So it's just a matter of finding out their needs, talking to them about it, and the most important part is asking them to join. I think that's our biggest fear, is asking people to join our club. For some reason, we perceive that, we don't want to go too hard on them or something. There's clubs that actually really struggle with getting new members because they set some real high expectations as well. Going back to that club we talked about a little bit earlier that basically was challenging a guest that wanted to work the educational program. They refused to allow a member to join because they had not been to, or a guest to join rather, because they had not been to 3 consecutive meetings. So the person was at a meeting 2 weeks ago, and 3 weeks ago, and they liked what they saw. The next meeting after that they had to miss because they had another activity. They go back to the following meeting, and one of the executive tells them, "I'm sorry, you're back to square one. You have to attend 2 more meetings in a row to qualify for membership." So that can be a barrier as well. If you're not just saying, "Hey, you know what? You want to sign up." There's a perception that people have that you need to allow guests to come to a couple meetings. No, I mean, if somebody's ready to join there on the spot, and they seem like they'll be a suitable member, don't turn them around. At the same time, you don't want to be desperate for them to join, but certainly allow that member to join if they're ready to make that commitment. That's really important. Jan's put in the comments here, potential new members can include those attracted by the club's PR activities. Another method can be a follow-up with members who haven't renewed. If the club is consistently focused on member needs, they'll have a better chance of adding and retaining members. Absolutely. Going right back to what I'm saying is you just need to figure out what people have come through the doors for. Let them know how your club can help them with that, and you're going to convert more members or retain members. Finding out why people are leaving can be powerful. There's going to be people that leave because they're moving away, but there could also be people that are just purely maybe fed up with some politics or something that's happening in the club, and it could be an issue you don't know is happening. It's just something they've seen that other members may be blind to. So giving them that chance to share their feelings, it may bring them back or it may not, but at least you're aware of what's happening. Jim's mentioned is it good for VP Ed to sit down one-on-one with members to determine each person's goal to help them achieve it? I really think so. In my first club, I shared this story earlier actually with a member I was talking to. We had a great phone call, and we had the same background with VP Education. Both of us, within weeks of joining Toastmasters, were convinced that VP Education was our future. So we signed up. We took on the role of VP Ed. And it's interesting, as you go through that year, you learn so much about people. And in my club's case, I had people that hadn't delivered a speech in probably a couple of years. So it was kind of like I got on them like, hey, when are you speaking? And just that little nudge was enough to get them back into working towards it. One of them has since went on to actually receive their Distinguished Toastmaster Award. So I think it is really critical that the VP Ed takes that time to discuss with people their goals and to nudge people along. Just like we need to nudge people to join our club, we need to nudge them along. Hey, you know what? I haven't seen you deliver a speech in a while. Because some people they're motivated and they're going to work the program. Other people kind of fall a little bit outside that. They're not as motivated anymore, and they just need that kind of almost like a jump start in order to get right back into it. And away they go, or maybe some others may need to be constantly badgered, I guess you could say, about it. And it doesn't mean that they don't want to do it or something. It's just they need, some people just need that push in order to keep going. And I've seen all types for sure as VP Ed. So sitting down and understanding what I did as well when I mentored someone, Jim, is I asked them, this was before the pathways rolled out. I said, okay, when would you like to do your icebreaker? And they said, okay, well, I'd like to do it, a couple more weeks or whatever the answer was. And I said, when would you like to finish your competent communicator? And she said, oh, that's a good question. And she gave me a date. I can't remember exactly what it was. I think it might have been maybe 10 months later or something like that, or a year later. So I knew, okay, so this is somebody that wants to go on a relatively fast clip. As the mentor, then I was able to kind of work with her and say, hey, this was the goal you set for yourself. You want to do a speech a month. Let's make sure we've got you scheduled in for that. And then I could touch base with her and say, what is it you need? Okay, so I know you just finished that speech. You did great. Give some feedback. What are you going to talk about in your next speech? And just keep the ball rolling. And she finished pretty much exactly as planned. So you could do the same, especially now, level 1. It's, hey, when do you think you can do 4 speeches? Boom, okay, yeah, 6 months, 4 months, whatever they want to do, you can help them achieve that. And as VP Education, you can oversee that. So it's been ad hoc. Yeah, I mean, you could do it with everyone. You don't even have to necessarily sit down with everyone. Some people you might have an idea as well, because I know it can be really challenging to meet with everybody. And it could just even be, sending them a quick email or giving them a quick phone call and saying, what are your goals? And if you'll be able to tell. There's those members that are going to be keen to sign up for things, and then there's going to be other people in the club that, oh boy, I've never seen them give a speech. And you can kind of talk to them a little bit about how much you'd love to hear them speak and watch them progress in the program, etc. Particularly now, if these people aren't going to finish their awards in the traditional program, get them into pathways. And hey, you know what? 4 speeches, level 1. Start challenging the club members to do that, and that's going to help you with the educational goals. But what else does your club need, Jim? Which group are you with again? You're in Division E.
Yeah, we're over Lightly Toasted Corporate Club. I think I was just on the Toastmasters site. There we are. Yeah, 7379. We're pretty hurting for our goals.
Oh yes. Yeah. Okay.
It's just everybody at work has 130% of assigned work to what they can do. Sometimes people say, look, take me off for a few months. I'm training for an Ironman. Or someone will say, look, I can't do this for a few months. My wife just had a baby, or it's just so crazy busy. That's the biggest problem.
Yeah, that can be challenging, and I understand in a work environment. The first club I was part of was in a work environment as well. We weren't closed corporately, but certainly the vast majority of our members were from one organization, government organization, and the rest were basically from core government. So it was very much like a workplace club. And yeah, there'd be lunchtime things going on as well, like meetings and what have you, or different events. And it's, how dare work get in the way of Toastmasters, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But I completely understand that situation. But clearly, like just looking at this, we can kind of tell that, all right, so the club's got 16 members, not a bad membership count at all, down from 22. So you haven't seen a significant decrease or anything like that that's occurred. So people must still be finding some value in whatever's happening, but you've recruited just 3 more people this year. So in order to qualify for distinguished, you'd have a ways to go in terms of goals, but not a ways to go really in members. 4 more members, although reflecting on 3 new members in the first 11 months of the year certainly means that maybe there's not a lot of interest right now. Maybe you've got some things going on at the office, like projects or something that are unique, maybe, or
Well, yeah, we do over 200 projects a year all around the world, ranging from things the size of a jumbo jet standing on its tail to something that goes your local community pool. And people are just very, very busy. It's, or people will be scheduled to do some roles or do a speech, and next thing you know, they get called away to go on site, and then they kind of lose their momentum.
Right. Well, the best thing I would suggest maybe in your club's case, though, is really getting people into pathways a little bit, and seeing if it's possible even for them to, like, hey, maybe you can't give a speech at our club this week. Do you want to talk to a neighboring club and see if you can do it, whether it's near your home, or if they're traveling somewhere and they're interested, they could potentially visit a club on site there or something. I know that's probably not going to be appealing to a lot of people, but some people may be willing to go for that. If I was traveling for work and going somewhere that wasn't terribly interesting, I'd probably go to a Toastmasters club.
Yeah, maybe. I hear they work long hours when they're at the on-site usually, but we do have half the members in Pathways, and that's a positive thing. And maybe what I need to do this year, I have got agreement from the club officers this year to have a shared progress file, kind of like the old wall chart style.
Yeah.
But we schedule our stuff with a shared Excel file. I think I'm going to put another Excel file there for progress, and I'll try to make it visually appealing based on the wall charts, but just to show people's progress through Pathways and see if everyone wants to share their progress, and then we can cheer each other on, and we can kind of hold that up in meetings and say, hey, so-and-so has done 3 out of the 4 first level 1 speeches, and try to create some energy and momentum and some interest.
And to be completely honest with the case, the club I first started in that was in that corporate-like environment as VP Ed, that was something that I always did, was schedule speeches in advance. I think we had like 6 weeks worth of scheduled speeches. So being a lunchtime group, we had enough time for 2 speeches. So I'd have 2 speeches set up for the next month and a half, basically, for everybody, and just keep sending that out and letting them know, here it is. And yes, we'd have a lot of people that would say, oh, I can't do it because of this or that, but it certainly held some more accountability to it, rather than getting people to sign up or scheduling something just a couple weeks in advance. It was like, look, you've had 6 weeks notice, and yes, there's going to be things that'll come up, but most people withdrew because they couldn't make the meeting, I found, more than they just weren't ready for the speech. I mean, you'd get the odd one with that reasoning, but more common, it was, legitimate, I can't make that meeting. And sometimes they just reschedule. So I found that really effective in moving people along. And with level 1 being only 4 speeches, it's really obtainable to get quite a number of the members through level 1 in a year easily.
Yeah, if I can just share a brief anecdote, I have been scheduling meetings, so there's always 4 to 6 of them scheduled in advance, and we meet every 2 weeks. And I would meet people in the hallway and say, hey, you ready for your speech next Wednesday? And it'll be like, 7 to 8 days out. And they look at me with this deer in the headlights look. And I'm like, come on, I emailed out 6 weeks ago. And when I did more meetings, I emailed everyone again 4 weeks ago and then 2 weeks ago. And it's getting to the point where we're going to put the next 3 meetings, all the roles, on the back of our agenda. So when people walk out of the meeting, they've got it. Because people, they just... either they don't read their email, or they put rules on their email that automatically files it to some other folder. And then they think, oh, well, I'll get to that sometime, but they never do. Yeah, it's it can be it can take the wind out of your sails as VP Ed when you do all this stuff and it's like, okay, just got to find a new way to communicate to people. And I'll finish this up with a very small piece here. I printed out the schedule for the next 4 weeks and I left it on every member's desk. And I had very opposite responses from the outgoing and the incoming president. Both of them said, "Oh, I got to talk to you about that. That's just too far. That's just overstepping your bounds." And I talked to our former sergeant at arms. He has been in the club for a long time. He's like, "Oh, that's perfect. It's exactly what I needed. So I can just have it right beside my monitor. It's right there. Thanks for printing that out. And now I don't have to dig through the email or go to this network drive and look at this file. I've just got it right there and I know what's coming up." So, anyway, that's
awesome. Yeah, I'd love to maybe at some point to see how else we can support your club. I think it'd be really nice to see distinguished this year, maybe a bit of a stretch, but certainly in next year and the years beyond to continue being a successful, viable club.
Well, I'm looking forward to the challenge. I tried to get out of VP Ed for this year because I did it last year and figured people didn't want to see any more of me, but no one stepped up and no one seemed to complain. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll treat it as a whole brand new experience. And we've got one new, a couple officers changed, and see if we can re-inject some energy and try it a new way. You know, that find a way that works for Whitewater. So
absolutely. Lisa, I know you're on the line as well. Which club are you in at the moment? I know you're in Vernon.
Hi, 129-8198.
129-8198. Kudos to you for knowing the number, by the way. Wow. It's always impressive when people remember their numbers, or you're looking at a cheat sheet and just going for the surprise factor. So right now, High Noon Toastmasters is at its base. So it has replaced the members that have dropped off over the year, but has not gained the 5 new members that it needs. So it would need to get to 18 by the end of June in order to get distinguished recognition. You do have some partial awards in there. So you've had somebody submit a competent communicator and a level 1. So we'd need either 3 more level 1s or a second competent communicator to get the 5th goal. And then it would just be a matter of increasing 5 new members.
We will actually have 8 goals.
Oh, wow.
Yes. They have to be input yet for 3 more members. We have a DTM and an advanced leader silver and another CC.
Okay, so in other words, it sounds like it's just the membership.
It is.
And do you have
we've had a lot of people leave for work or health or moving out of town reasons. We followed up with one who was away for a few weeks and her shifts at work had changed, so she's going to join another club.
Okay.
So it's been a bit of a struggle. This week we're having an open house.
Okay.
We're hoping to seal the deal and have more people join. And that's where we're at.
And what day of the week do you meet?
Wednesday at noon.
Wednesday at noon. Okay. Because if you're doing an open house or something, then perhaps I don't know if it's possible if you guys have any means to have online attendance, but I'd love to join or see if I can make arrangements to join for either your open house or a future meeting this upcoming month, if that would help in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. Where we meet, the Wi-Fi is spotty.
Okay. Well.
I know we tried to do an online training with some Wi-Fi. It didn't work very well. So yes, the last open house we had a lot of guests, but not many joined.
Okay. Well, let me put my thinking cap on. So that's this Wednesday? This week?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Perhaps we can get some information out to you guys that would be of help and help seal the deal. Because I mean, if you're going to have 8 goals met, it would be and possibly even from the open house automatically you might get a couple more members. It would be nice to finish off and get all the way up to 18.
It would.
I think that's possible.
It's been like this for the last few years for us. We've been President's Distinguished when we first started for several years.
Mm.
And the membership numbers has been a challenge.
Okay. Okay. Well, we can certainly see what we can do to make sure that you know, your membership gets up towards 18. I mean, it definitely is a challenge because it's not possible really just to, you know, drop them into the club. People have to elect to join. But it's just a matter of getting people in the door and taking the approach of asking them to join. And letting people know as well that they may make the difference. This is last story I'm going to share. I know this is we went just a bit over time, and we rarely do this, but it was an incredible story that I heard from I believe it was International Director Mary Morrison last week. She talked a little bit about when she was district director. She actually called a number of clubs and let them know that, you know what, we're getting really close to being a distinguished district. And if your club gains distinguished recognition, that may just be all we need to push us over the edge to distinguished district. If there's anything you could do, I'd really appreciate it. And sure enough, I think 5 of the clubs that she called, they pulled through, they reached distinguished recognition. And she said, well, I'll never really know if it was one of those clubs that made our district distinguished, but I will know that those 5 people, those 5 club presidents, think they are the hero that made the district distinguished. And you could use a similar approach really with the guests. I mean, if you've got a guest that's really interested and on the fence about joining, you could say, hey, you know what, we really need you. And this is kind of what this could mean for our club, and start to work that way. I mean, you don't want to do it again out of desperation, because then people are in there for the wrong reason. But just letting them know that now's the time to join, and, you know, don't wait until later to join. Join today if you're going to join, and start your progress next week type thing. So just something to think about. I mean, you want to approach that carefully, but it was such an interesting story to hear from her, and that realization that, yeah, those presidents now think they saved the world, or at least the district, made the district distinguished, and maybe those guests that you convert to members think that they are the heroes that helped your club reach that recognition as well. Last thing here, just from Jan, club officer training may help the executive develop strategies. Does the executive meet every month or so? This may help create a spirit of teamwork and goal setting. Effort is already being made. Would be nice to see tangible results. Kudos to you for continuing to keep positive attitude, and best to you. So I believe that was a message in the chat there from Jan to Lisa. And I will go ahead and move towards wrapping up here this seminar Sunday, as I know we're over time, and as Toastmasters, that's just not how we do things. We operate to on time, but I do want to further debrief with you guys, and I'd love to help any way I can for you know, High Noon or any club for that matter. It would be an honor to support you ongoing any way we can to help you achieve excellence. So thank you all for joining this session, and feel free to connect with me anytime with whatever we can do to help. Take care.